Welcome to the Clique podcast. I'm Dani Watson, a mindset and manifestation expert and founder of the Clique, a company that helps women overcome their fears and limiting beliefs to create a life and business that they love. Within this podcast, I will help you get clear on what you want, identify the blocks that are holding you back, transform your mindset and raise your vibration so that you can co-create magic with the universe. If you are looking to design a life that truly sets your soul on fire and manifest more success and abundance, then you are in the right place. Hello ladies! So the inspiration for today's episode actually came off the back of a session that I was doing with one of our students from the Clique Academy. So we were having a one-to-one session, and one of the things that she was up against was actually sticking with her mindset routine. And she would kind of have this pattern where she would start with her morning ritual and she'd kind of get really excited about getting stuck into this daily ritual, this mindset work. And 3 or 4 weeks later, she'd find herself in this pattern where she'd perhaps miss a day or two, and then she'd fall off the bandwagon, and then it would be months and months and months before she would pick up her mindset routine again. And so this is a common pattern that a lot of people experience, and it maybe it's with your mindset ritual, maybe it's with healthy eating, maybe it's with going to the gym. This pattern where you start something new, and because it's new, it's exciting, you're happy to start doing this shiny new thing. But then after a while, maybe you've got yourself into a bit of a rhythm, but then something happens and all of a sudden you stop. You fall off the wagon and it takes you a while to get back on again. And then you end up in this pattern of stopping and starting and never really progressing anywhere or never really getting very much further. So I wanted to address today how to actually deal with this. If you kind of find yourself in this pattern of stop-start when it comes to your mindset work, how do you keep the consistency there? How do you keep yourself going? And when you do have a setback, when you do have a day or two, perhaps even a week where you don't do anything, how do you motivate yourself to get going again? Now, something that's really important is connecting with your why. What is the thing that's actually motivating you to show up each day and work on your mindset? And motivation can come from different sources. You're either somebody that's motivated by the push, or you're motivated by the pull. So what I mean by that is there something really negative in your life that's pushing you to sort of do this work, to kind of go through this period of growth? Or is there something pulling you? Maybe it's a combination of both. A pull would be something positive, some kind of big goal or big desire that you're so excited about. That excitement is motivating you to take action. Okay, so what is your motivator? What is the why behind doing what you're doing? So let's say you're working on your mindset. The chances are you're doing so because you're wanting to achieve something within your life. What is that thing? Maybe you're looking to manifest a new relationship, a health goal. Maybe you're starting a business and you're wanting to achieve a certain goal within that. Connecting with the why of that goal is super important to keep you motivated. And as I said, it's going to be either a push, a pull, or perhaps a combination of the two. So for example, when I was back in the day when I just started out in my business, I needed a very strong motivator to kind of keep me doing, the mindset work, but also keeping me consistent within the work that I needed to do within my business. It would have been very easy for me to fall back on my commitments because I had a busy schedule already. I was already working 60 plus hours a week. It would have been so easy for me to come home at the end of the day and use the excuse of, I'm tired. I don't want to do this today, put things off and end up getting to this place where I stagnated. I didn't, because I had that strong motivator. And my motivations were both a combination of the push and the pull. The push was that I was really, really pretty miserable in my day-to-day life, right? I was so lost. I was so unfulfilled. I was at a point where I was struggling with anxiety. It was even getting to a point of panic attacks. Like, that's how unfulfilled I was. So my push was pretty strong, but I also had a very, very strong pull as well, because I had a very, very clear vision of what I wanted to create, of why I was showing up each day, even though, I was tired from work, why I was getting up in the morning before my daily commute, again, despite the fact that I perhaps hadn't had a full 8 hours of sleep that night. I had this very strong vision of where I wanted to go. That vision being the impact that I wanted to have on the lives of others. I had a very strong vision of what I wanted my day-to-day life to look like. So it was that kind of very compelling reason to leave my job, and the very compelling reason to make changes, this life that I wanted to create and the impact. Those things were enough to kind of keep me motivated. So that's what you need. You need either a strong pull or a strong push. And if you don't have a strong push, and actually, the client that I connected with, she didn't necessarily have a hugely strong push because her job was pretty comfortable. So her routine was all about creating, a consistent routine within showing up for her business, showing up for her mindset work, so that she could eventually leave her job and take her business full time. However, her day-to-day life was pretty comfortable as it was. She wasn't living her best life, but she was pretty content. She didn't hate her job. Monday to Friday, she was pretty happy. She wasn't coming home and crying because of how much she hated her job. So the compelling push wasn't really there. So that meant she needed to double down on her pull. She needed to double down on her desires and her goals. What was the thing that was really going to get her excited, that was going to get her hungry to show up and to show up consistently? So let's move on then to another important point. And that point is getting yourself out of the perfectionism mindset when it comes to your rituals. So let me give you an example of this. Have you kind of ever said to yourself, okay, I'm going to start going to the gym, but only when I've bought, the Lululemon yoga outfit, and I've got a new yoga mat, and, I've signed up to this really fancy gym, and you've made these excuses as to why you're not doing something because the conditions for doing that action aren't yet perfect. How many of you resonate with that at all? And this is sometimes very similar when it comes to rituals or routines that we want to be consistent with. If the conditions don't look perfect for that routine, we make up this excuse that, I don't have to do it today. So a good example of this with the morning routine, let's say you're doing sort of mindset work. I'm a huge advocate, right, of doing things in the morning, getting up first thing and, working on your mindset being the first thing that you do. The premise behind that is that, how you start your day sets the tone for how your day continues. And that's all very well and good. But let's say, for example, you've made that a rule for yourself. I'm going to do my mindset work first thing in the morning. And then that doesn't happen. So you say to yourself, well, I've already missed the boat now, therefore I won't do it. Yeah, what if mindset work was something that you could fit into your day as and when? So really kind of letting go of this perfectionism mindset that your mindset ritual has to look a certain way and being a little bit more flexible with how you approach things. So as great as it may be for you to do your mindset first thing in the morning, if that doesn't happen, if there's a day that doesn't happen, it doesn't mean that, the final whistle's blown and all of a sudden you're out of the game. Okay, how could you perhaps slot your mindset ritual into other parts of your day? And it may not necessarily be that you do everything that you want to do in one go. So I have 2 children. I have a 2-year-old and a 5-month-old at the time of recording this. I used to love my mornings, getting up and having an hour to myself where I would just focus on me and my mindset. Today's reality, however, is that doesn't happen very often. In fact, it's very rare now that I'm able to get up and just have that space for myself because I'm breastfeeding my son and he needs me. So it just doesn't work like that. So for me, allowing myself to be a little bit more flexible with when my mindset routine happens, and also, knowing that I might not always get like an hour or so to myself during a day, because if my son needs me, I got to be there for him. So it might be that I will sit down thinking, oh, he's having a nap now. I'm going to do some meditation. And then, he wakes up. And so this hour that I've got planned to meditate, to read, to journal, it just doesn't work like that. So it's just being a little bit more flexible and a little bit more forgiving, and not necessarily having this like perfect scenario where you do your mindset work, and if it doesn't work out like that, then you give up on it. What you're doing is almost like you're setting yourself up for failure, because if you're saying to yourself, mindset work has to look a certain way, and then it doesn't, it almost feels like you failed. And then in the same breath, almost like sort of being consistent each day, again, being a little bit more forgiving with yourself when it comes to the consistency, rather than seeing taking a day off as a failure. Because let's think about it. When we're telling ourselves we failed, we're approaching things with this very negative mindset. And do you think you are more motivated and excited to do something when you're speaking to yourself in that very much negative tone of voice? Probably not, okay? You want to almost think of yourself as your own little cheerleader, okay? If somebody's saying, oh, you're so rubbish because you didn't do this today, probably tomorrow comes and you're not going to be that motivated. You're not going to be that excited to take action. Whereas if you're gentler with yourself and how you speak to yourself when you do miss a day, when you are more forgiving and more compassionate and kinder to yourself, it's that gentle cheerleader. Okay, fine, you've missed a day. It's not the end of the world. Tomorrow's a new day. Having that sort of language, using that sort of language is going to make it a lot easier for you to get back on track if you do miss a day. Remember that one bad day does not need to become a bad few days or a bad week. A bad week doesn't need to become a bad month. With any given day, we are given a blank sheet of paper and we get to choose what we create on that page. Okay? Every day is a fresh start. So remember that. Remember that, you can draw a line under the sand if today was just one of those days where everything that you said you wanted to get done didn't get done. It's absolutely fine. Tomorrow is a fresh start. Now, the next thing I want to talk about is what beliefs are causing your self-sabotaging patterns of behavior. Okay, because with any pattern of behavior that we experience, the reason why we do or don't do certain things is tied in with our belief system. Okay, so I'll explain what I mean by this. If you've listened to my podcast before, you will already be very well versed on belief work and the importance of beliefs in creating your reality. Okay, what we experience in our physical world is a product of our belief system. And so when we experience these self-sabotaging patterns of behavior, such as starting something only to then quit a few weeks later, okay, that self-sabotaging pattern of behavior can be directly linked to a belief. Okay, now it could be a whole host of beliefs. There's so many different beliefs that could be causing this pattern of behavior, and it's going to be different for every one of you. But I want to share something that I identified when I experienced this pattern of stopping and starting, and what that meant, for my belief system. So to kind of relate a story, one of my sort of experiences from this, I want to share about when I was writing my book. So my book, I published it in the year that my daughter was born. So it was published in 2019, but that was something that I had been wanting to write for a long time prior to that. And I had found myself in this pattern of stop and start. So I would start writing and I'd be consistent with that and I'd get excited about it and I'd do it for a few weeks and all of a sudden I would stop again. Okay, and doing the work on my mindset, I realized that this was tied to a belief of mine, a belief around who am I to really share this story. It was really all tied in with my worthiness. Who am I to share this? What value do I have to give? Who would really care about my story and my experiences? I'm not an expert on this yet, or I'm still very new to this whole industry in the grand scheme of things. And it was really tied on my worthiness to be seen and to be heard, and for, my worthiness for my message to be shared. And so there was a part of me that just did not feel worthy to really write that book and to feel worthy of sharing my message. So my pattern of self-sabotage was to get really, really excited and to start, but then to stop only a few weeks afterwards. Okay, so you want to identify, is there a certain belief here that's keeping me stuck in this pattern of starting and stopping? What is that belief that's holding me back? So it might take a bit of digging to find it, but afterwards it will then be a case of doing the work to transform that belief. So for me, this work was all around my worthiness to share my message, my worthiness to be heard, my worthiness, that to say that like I was important, that my message was important, what I'd experienced was important. It was all kind of really to strengthen the work, strengthen my own self-worth so that I could really then break this pattern. And it was only when I really did that I found myself allowing myself to be more consistent with that, with writing and showing up each day, and to eventually obviously then publish my book and get that message out there. Now remember, with any type of negative action, there's a positive intention behind it, okay? So even though you may have a negative pattern of behavior, such as, starting a mindset routine, but then to quit a few weeks later and to give up, even though on the surface level that's a negative pattern of behavior, behind that behavior there will be some sort of positive intention, some benefit behind that behavior. You want to figure out what that benefit might be for you. Okay, so it might be, for me, it was really, it was a protection method, right? If I quit writing my book, I was protecting myself from being vulnerable, because a big part of my book was me sharing my story. And I went quite deep into things that had happened to me in my past, my relationships, my relationship with money. And so that was a really vulnerable thing for me to do. And so, yes, stopping and starting, on the surface, it looked like this negative pattern of behavior, but that pattern of behavior was serving me. It was there to protect me. It was keeping me safe. It was keeping me in my comfort zone. It was holding me back from really putting my work out there, and therefore, protecting me from judgment, protecting me from criticism, protecting me from, this vulnerability, a feeling of exposing myself and exposing my story for the world to see. Okay, so what is the benefits that you're deriving, from that pattern of behavior? Now, something else to be mindful of when it comes to being consistent and getting yourself to do things and to show up daily for yourself or for, the activities that you need to do. Think about the language that you're using in relation to that activity, okay? And think about how you are trying to talk yourself into doing something. So what I mean by this is, are you saying to yourself, I have to do this, I should do this, I need to do this? Or are you saying, I want to do this, I'm excited to do this, I can't wait to take this action? Because the language that you use to motivate yourself to do something is going to dictate how excited you're going to feel to actually do that thing. Think about, well, I don't know if anybody else experienced this, but when I was back at school, I often didn't do the work when the teachers told me to do it. I was actually a really good student, but I was a pretty poor student in class. In class, I kind of did my own thing. I chatted with my friends. I wasn't necessarily the best pupil in class. Yet when I got home, I absolutely loved studying. It was really strange. I'd get home and I would be hungry to study. And I remember this one particular teacher. It was a French teacher that I had. And he was always talking to us in a very sort of like authoritative tone. You've got to do this, you have to do this. And he was very, very strict. And I just did not respond well to that kind of language at all, to the point where I almost like rebelled against it. And the more he would tell me, oh, I've got to do something, you have to do this, the more I resisted it. So the point that I'm trying to get to here is often that kind of authoritative tone, we don't always respond well to it. And it can be sort of, again, coming back to like how we've been conditioned in school, like we don't like the idea of being told what to do. Coming back to my story, this speaking to myself in that more forgiving language, not forgiving language, more sort of gentle language, I find is a much, much better way to motivate myself. So even if it's something that I don't necessarily want to do, rather than saying to myself, you've got to do this, you have to sit down now and do this and get it done, I will convince myself that I really want to do it, okay? So I'm excited to do it. I can't wait to do this. So it might be something like, I don't know, something really that you hate doing. Let's say you're in your business and you've got a task that you really, really don't want to do, but you know kind of you need to get it done. Maybe it's something like taxes. Nobody loves taxes. Well, some people love taxes, thank goodness, accountants and things, and thank God that they do. But for the rest of us who don't enjoy that kind of work, let's say you've not hired an accountant yet and you've got to do sort of, the numbers yourself. You really don't want to do it. You're going to make that 10 times worse by telling yourself and reinforcing that message that I don't want to do this. This is going to be horrible. This is going to suck. Set the tone for showing up in a way that's going to feel good by changing the narrative. I can't wait to do my taxes. This is the most fun I've ever had in my business. It's almost like you're convincing yourself, you're tricking your mind that this is something that you really, really want to do. Okay, and you will find that when you speak to yourself in that way, it's much easier to stay consistent with the things. Okay, so, even if it's something like, let's say it's your mindset routine, don't tell yourself you've got to do it. You don't have to do anything. You're choosing to do it. I am choosing to work on my mindset today. I'm so excited for this incredible opportunity to work on my mindset today. Oh, how lucky am I that I get to work on my mindset today? If you approach it with that kind of narrative behind it, you will find that you're much more compelled to do the work, to show up and be consistent with it, because you're not talking to yourself in this sort of forceful dictatorship kind of voice. And then my next point on this is to connect with the identity of you who shows up for herself daily, who is consistent. If you are telling yourself, I'm somebody that just isn't very consistent with things, if you are kind of reminding yourself that you're somebody who just gives up, that has become a part of your identity. It's become a part of who you are. You see yourself as that kind of person who will start things and then stop things. So for you to really change that pattern of behavior, it means you stepping into a new identity. That version of you who shows up for herself and her mindset work and her activities every single day. Who is that version of you? And you need to be able to see that version of you clearly in order for you to become her. Okay, so using the process of visualization to connect with a vision of you who is consistent. What does that look like? Have you allowed yourself to feel into who that person really is? Can you see her? Can you see how she shows up each day? When she doesn't feel like doing something, what is she saying to herself? Okay, so being able to visualize with that future version of you who shows up consistently in order for you to step into her shoes on a daily basis. Okay, so almost using the mindset work to be consistent with the mindset work, if that makes sense. And then one final point actually before we wrap up this episode for today is whatever you're doing, just do it with intention. So whether you are doing something or you're not doing something, make that an intentional choice. Okay, so just as we can form unintentional habits of bad actions. So for example, it might be waking up every morning and grabbing your phone to scroll through Instagram. Have you intentionally said to yourself, okay, every morning I'm going to get up and I'm going to scroll aimlessly through Instagram? No, more often than not, that is just a habit that you do without thinking. It's unintentional. It's just kind of like an aimless sort of activity that you're doing with no sort of thought or consciousness behind it. Okay, so just as we can do that for bad habits, bad actions, we can also be unintentional with not doing something, not doing good actions. So for example, saying to yourself, okay, I'm going to get up in the morning and I'm going to, I'm going to get up every day and do a, meditation first thing. And then you get up and you unintentionally just go about your day without thinking about the meditation. You just kind of like brush it off. And, you don't really face your mindset head on. So what I mean by that is that in that moment that you decide not to do something, something's obviously going on internally, right? But rather than just avoiding what's going on internally and being very unintentional about, your thoughts and letting your thoughts almost kind of run on autopilot, you want to face whatever's going on for you head on, okay? So be really intentional about whatever you are doing, whether it's doing something or whether it's not doing something. Are you consciously aware of your choices? Okay, so catching yourself in the moment. If you get up in the morning and you are wanting to meditate, but you don't do it, what is your mind saying? You actually want to face it head on and really figure out, like, what is your mind telling you? Okay, because in that moment, you do have a choice. And it's absolutely fine if you decide, you know what, I'm not going to meditate today. But as long as that is an intentional choice, it's not just a habit that you've fallen into where you just push things to one side and you forget about it and it's kind of a bit of an unconscious process. You want to bring awareness to that whole process. Okay, I'm not meditating here. What is going on? I am choosing not to meditate today. Actually vocalizing those words. If you wake up one day or you're going about your day and you say, oh, I don't feel like doing any workout today, that's absolutely fine. You don't have to do anything. Nobody is holding a gun to your head to do the workout or to do the work on your business or to do your mindset routine. You don't have to do any of these things. You're doing them because you want to do them and you're choosing to do them. So if you're not choosing to do them, that's fine as well. But make sure you're acknowledging that that is your choice. Today, I am choosing not to do the mindset work. Why? Why are you choosing that? I don't feel like it today. Okay, that's absolutely fine. But you've brought awareness to that choice rather than it to be a pattern that you are habitually falling into without really thinking about it. Okay, I'm choosing not to show up today. That's okay. I'm acknowledging that this is my choice, that I don't have to show up today. Why is that? I'm tired. Rattle off your excuses. Confront your excuses head on. Sometimes our excuses are happening internally and we just kind of hear the excuses. Oh, I'm tired. I can't be bothered. I don't want to do it today. But sometimes when we vocalize those excuses, so actually say them out loud, I am choosing to not meditate today because I can't be bothered. I don't want to. I've got more things important to do today. It's not my priority. Sometimes when we vocalize things and we say things out loud, it often stops us in our tracks and we start to question that. We're like, well, actually, am I too tired to meditate today? And we start to kind of challenge these excuses. Okay, so give that a go. Start to really vocalize your choice and bring intention to your choice, because you may find in that moment that you want to challenge that. And in that challenge, you can then say, actually, you know what? I'm not too tired. This is just an excuse. I really want to do this today. I'm committed to my mindset work and I want to show up for myself. Now, I could probably go on for hours and hours and hours about this subject because honestly, it's something that I've explored so much within my own life because I've been there and I still experience it now, patterns of stop-start, it's about sort of not just resigning yourself to the fact that this is just who you are and how life can be. You can step into a new identity. Just as you can become more confident, you can also become somebody that is more consistent. Okay, but it doesn't necessarily happen overnight. So this is where just that self-compassion comes into it, okay? If you're not consistent right now, you're going to make things 10 times worse by beating yourself up for the fact that you're not consistent. Okay, you can use like a little affirmation there that might help you with this. Like every day I'm getting more and more consistent and I'm building better habits for myself. Something as simple as that can really help building this new identity of the consistent you who shows up for herself and, sticks with her path and sticks with her mindset routine, sticks with her goals. But yeah, I hope this resonated with you all. I hope this gave you all a lot of food for thought for today. As always, it was lovely, lovely, lovely connecting with you, and I will speak with you on the next episode. Have a great week, ladies. Bye. If you are wanting to build your own successful online coaching business, make sure to check out Freedom, Abundance and Impact, our free 10-day business and mindset course for coaches and aspiring coaches. To access, simply head to wearetheclique.com and click free course in the menu.